Hi, everybody. I am so excited to have Dr. Larry Farwell here to talk about peace and how we can cause peace on the planet from a scientific perspective. But before we get into this really juicy conversation, let me read his bio. And I'm reading it because it's so extraordinarily extensive, and this person next to me is just an extraordinary individual. So first of all, welcome, Dr. Larry. Thank you for being here. And I'll let you get a word in edgewise as soon as I've read your bio. So one of the really awesome things about Dr. Larry is that he was selected by Time as one of the top 100 innovators that were Picassos or Einsteins of the 21st century. He is a Harvard-educated neuroscientist and the world's leading expert on the science of creating miracles. His revolutionary scientific research in neuroscience, quantum physics, and the role of consciousness in life and the universe has introduced a new scientific paradigm. He has developed practical techniques to apply the science of creating miracles in life. Dr. Farwell has worked with individuals, governments, agencies, high-ranking officials, including heads of states, leaders, and organizations throughout the world, including the President of the United States, the US Navy, the FBI, the CIA, and their counterparts around the world. He has published his research in the leading peer-reviewed scientific journals, and he has been featured in major news media worldwide. Welcome, Dr. Larry, as I fondly like to call you.
Delightful to be here with you, Mimi. Thank you for having me.
It's my honor and pleasure. And I was so excited. I read your book. I had the honor of being able to read your book, The Science of Creating Miracles. And I believe I got to in chapter 17, and I got, oh my God, we can really create peace on the planet, like no kidding. Like it's not a hope, a wish, or a dream. There is actually a way that we can do that. So the whole premise of everything I do around peace is that people have inner peace, so the world has outer peace. So share with us a little bit about, from the scientific perspective, how we can make that happen.
All right, Mimi. First of all, let's look at something you're very familiar with, which is what is world peace? What does world peace mean? World peace means a world of people living lives of peace and harmony. If you want a green forest, you have to have green trees. World peace is not some kind of an arrangement. It's people's lives living peace and harmony. So the first point that comes to mind, and this is something you're very familiar with, is that it's all of our responsibility. All of us are the creators of world peace if we're going to be able to create it. So what we have to look at in order to think of a scientific way to create world peace is, how are we going to create peace and harmony in the lives of the individuals in the world? And in order to have peace and harmony in people's lives, they're also going to need to have happiness, fulfillment, and success in their lives. Because people who are not successful in their lives, who are experiencing a lot of suffering and upset in their lives, are not going to be able to contribute to a world of harmony and fulfillment. Right. So what it really comes down to is, how do we create happy, fulfilled, peaceful, harmonious, successful, creative, intelligent human beings? How do we provide people with the knowledge and experience that they need to have that be their lives? In other words, going back to the title of my book, The Science of Creating Miracles, Neuroscience, Quantum Physics, and Living the Life of Your Dreams. How do we create a world where people are living the life of their dreams and are creating miracles in their lives? And that's really the way that I see we can address world peace. So I think everyone would agree it would be a miracle to have world peace. It would be a miracle to have people living lives of fulfillment and success throughout the world. How do we create that miracle? Well,
So
yes, go ahead.
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second before you continue with that train of thought, because I think it's really important at this point to distinguish miracle, because some people have miracle as something religious, as opposed to how you've distinguished it. So why don't you spend just a couple of minutes on that before you continue this train of thought?
All right. Science of creating miracles. Okay, first of all, what do miracles have to do with science? What is a miracle? If we're going to define it scientifically, what is a miracle? Well, it has long been thought in the past that a miracle is something that goes outside or beyond the usual laws of science, something that just happens magically.
Right.
However, if we look at quantum mechanics, if we look at the quantum mechanical universe, and I've published in the physics journals as well as the neuroscience journals. I've done research with my father, leading nuclear physicist George Farwell, in quantum mechanics and nuclear physics. So if we look at the world from the perspective of quantum mechanics, anything is possible. Any imaginable configuration of quantum particle wave phenomena is possible. Now I'm going to geek out for just a minute here talking about what the universe is from the point of view of quantum mechanics. This desk looks very solid. It looks brown. It seems to be a separate object. It seems to be still. But if we look more, you can hear me knocking on it. But if we look deeply into it, we're going to see molecules moving around at high speeds. Within those, we see atoms at higher speeds. Within those, we see elementary particles, neutrons, protons, electrons. Within those, we see quarks. And if we go down to the string theory level, we see vibrating strings. It's mostly empty space. The air between me and the desk is mostly empty space. The desk is mostly empty space. And what's in there? The vibrating strings. Vibrations in the unified field. Now, the unified field is simply that field of potential from which all the particle wave phenomena that make up creation spring. So what we're really looking at when we look at the physical creation is a conglomeration, a pattern of vibrations in this unified field. And all of the great spiritual traditions tell us that that unified field that gives rise to creation is the same as the inner field of pure consciousness within ourselves that gives rise to our individual experience. So we decided, my dad and I, decided to put that to the test. And first of all, into a scientific laboratory. And first of all, with respect to what makes a miracle in this quantum mechanical universe, in quantum mechanics, any possible configuration of vibratory influences is any imaginable conglomeration of vibratory influences is possible. Any event is possible. I was talking to my dad and I said, hey, Dad, when we were first developing science of creating miracles, we were at lunch in a restaurant. And I said, hey, Dad, anything is possible. And he said, yeah, any imaginable configuration of quantum particle wave phenomena is possible. Some are probable, some are highly improbable. I said, well, right, for example, it's possible that the elementary particles that make up my body and your body are going to tunnel to the other side of the moon, and tunneling is a known phenomenon in quantum mechanics, along with enough air to breathe, and we're going to carry on this conversation there. He said, yeah, you're right. In fact, and he got out a paper napkin and he wrote down some figures. He wrote down a formula and did some quick computations. He computed the approximate probability that that was going to happen. Now, it was a low probability and it didn't happen. The point is that any imaginable thing can happen. Any miracle can happen. A miracle in the scientific realm, the scientific definition of a miracle, is an improbable event, not an impossible event. So my dad and I, Professor Farwell and I, Professor George Farwell and I, set up an experiment where we would test, well, let's see if we can create improbable events. Let's see if we can create miracles. Now, all of us have had experiences in our life where we think we might have created something improbable that wasn't just a coincidence. For example, you're thinking about, I'd really like to hear from my friend Joe. Phone rings and it's Joe, just then. Now, that may have been something that was simply a coincidence. Maybe it would have happened anyway. So we don't know the probability. So we can say, well, that seems like we have those experiences enough that we can say, I think there's something really there beyond coincidence, but we don't have a scientific phenomenon. We don't know the probability. Now we do know the probability of alpha particle emission by plutonium. The plutonium, as you know, probably know, is one of the major ingredients of an atomic bomb. It emits alpha particles, among other things. We know the exact probability distribution. So my dad and I set up an experiment. We'll see if we can shift the probability distribution of alpha particle emission by plutonium. Now, what this has to do with world peace, we'll get to in just a minute.
I was going to ask.
I'll get to that. But let me describe the experiment. Essentially, we found that to make it brief, we found that we could shift the probability distribution of these elementary particles down to the subatomic level, down to the microsecond level. We could create extremely unlikely events using consciousness alone, simply by setting up a vibratory influence on the level of our consciousness, which was then reflected in the vibratory influence in the conscious unified field in this experimental apparatus, which was a standard nuclear physics apparatus, the kind that my dad uses in his research, in nuclear physics research. So what does that mean? It means that we can create, on the level of our consciousness, we can create unusual events, improbable events, extremely improbable events. I mean, off the charts in the statistics books. So what does that mean? What that means is, if what you're really interested in is influencing alpha particle emission, that means you can do that. But what's more important is we can create improbable events in our lives. We can create, quote unquote, miracles. We can create the scientific definition of miracles, which is an improbable event, simply by enlivening that vibration on the level of our consciousness. Now, if you go to the latest book that came out last week, my book included, which is about how to be successful in your life, but all the other books that came out last week, whatever they are, they're going to say, first you create that inner vision on the level of your consciousness, and then you set up nature in that vibration, and you find that it shows up in your environment, and things come to you in ways you couldn't have predicted. If you go to the ancient scriptures from 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, they say the same thing. Consciousness is the prime mover of the universe. And what we showed in the conscious unified field experiment, which we published then, is that really is the case, that consciousness really does move the universe, and that miracles really are possible, and that we can create them. So
Awesome.
then go ahead.
So the next question would be, if we can use our consciousness to create things that are improbable, and peace as we know it today is improbable, how do we use our consciousness to create peace?
Brilliant question, Mimi. Let's get into that. First of all, remember, peace is not somebody else's responsibility. It's yours and mine.
Right.
So the first thing, if we're going to create a peaceful world, we're going to create peaceful lives for you and me. I think it was Mark Twain who said, to do good is noble. To teach others to do good is more noble and less trouble. So if we start telling everybody else how to create world peace, that's actually not really going to be the best approach. First, we've got to create it in our own lives.
Right.
And let's look at how we can create consciousness, how we can use consciousness to create peace in our own lives, peace and harmony in our own lives. And we'll get down to the practical day-to-day realities. And now we get into the neuroscience realm. How does the brain learn? How do we learn? Well, say you're crawling around on the kitchen floor. And what we're getting at here is how to create harmony and peace in our lives. But say you're crawling around on the kitchen floor, you're 2 years old. You touch the table leg, you touch the floor, you touch the wall, nothing much to learn there, that's ordinary. You touch the hot stove and you have an aha experience. Aha, okay, now something significant has happened here. I've got something to learn here. There's some new information to take in. Now that aha experience is accompanied by a brain response. It's implemented by an information processing activity in the brain, which is called, of course, a memory and encoding related multifaceted electroencephalographic response, MER, murmur, or a P300 murmur. So when you have one of these murmur moments, it's an aha experience. And what happens then is the brain is open for reprogramming. Something came along that's important to me. I'm going to need to learn this. I'm going to need to restructure the way my brain is thinking, reprogram the way my brain is thinking. All right, so what happens? What gives us aha experiences? What gives us murmur experiences? Well, something comes along, someone says or does something, something comes along in life which triggers you. We get upset about it. Somebody says, well, I don't like your hair, or you did a terrible job with XYZ at your work, or whatever it is. We get triggered by it. Okay, now that's an aha experience. That's a triggering experience. Now what people...
So do we get triggered by good moments too? Like you mentioned a couple of examples of maybe negative moments, but we get aha moments and murmur moments from positive things too, right?
Sure. You know, first time you touch a hot burner on the stove, that's going to be an aha moment. Now, the first time you touch intimately somebody who you really care about and are highly attracted to, that's an aha experience too.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that people were clear.
Yeah, so you can have a murmur moment from positive experiences or from negative experiences, but there are things that get your attention, that bring you here into the present, that open the mind, open the brain for reprogramming. Now, what people sometimes do in those murmur moments, let's say for the sake of this discussion, this is a negative murmur moment. One thing that people do is shoot the messenger. So, okay, I'm going to punish this person to make sure they don't do that again. And they're not going to upset me again. Another thing that people do is sometimes they internalize, oh gosh, you know, maybe I really am ugly, or whatever. Maybe I really am not effective in my job. Now, neither of those actually are particularly useful ways to reprogram the brain. So here's the key. When something comes along that triggers you, this is a technique which we call transmutation trigger, and I'll get into transmutation in a moment. What we use that for, use that as a trigger to tune in to the reality. Now, what is the reality? The reality is not that this person who said something that they would say something about how you did your job, or your what your hair looks like, or something like. The reality is not that that's a threat to your life. Our nervous system may be responding as if it's a threat to our life. If you're actually being chased by a bear, then that response of the heart pounding, the fight or flight response, that's appropriate. But if you're not actually being chased by a bear, if the reality is someone's expressed an opinion about something, that really has nothing to do with you. Who are you? And this is what transmutation has to be about, happens to be about, or is about. Who are you? Well, if you are this unbounded conscious unified field that can create vibrations that manifest in the entire creation, you're an unbounded, infinitely powerful cosmic being. You're completely valuable, completely safe, completely powerful. That's who you are at essence, because who you are at essence is that conscious unified field that creates the whole universe. So the point of a murmur moment, when something triggers you, rather than diving into the rabbit hole of, okay, what's wrong with this person? How am I going to react to this? Or what's wrong with me? Use that as a trigger to tune into, okay, well, who am I really? Well, actually get a feeling, a sense of, well, who's the real Mimi? Who's the real Dr. Larry Farwell? What does it feel like to be that infinitely powerful, unbounded being that creates my own life and creates the universe? That's who I really am. You tune into that reality, and then you're taking advantage of this reprogramming opportunity for the brain. You've got our attention, universe. Aha, okay, now I'm here. The brain's ready for reprogramming. Allow your attention to go to, who am I really? Oh, I'm this unbounded, infinite being on this quiet level. This person's opinion about whatever had nothing to do with me. This event coming along had nothing, it was no real threat to me. Tune into who you really are. And that is a way to reprogram your brain towards peace and harmony. It's a process that we call transmutation. There's a lot of talk these days about transformation. Now, transformation means changing the form of something. You can take a statue that's made of lead and change it to a different form. It's a different, still made of lead, but it's a different form of the statue. Now, transmutation actually the term came out of alchemy, where they would transmute the material. They'd transmute the lead, attempt to transmute the lead into gold. So in transformation, what happens with people is they transform, they change the way they're thinking, the way they're feeling, what their thoughts, their actions, their emotions, etc. Transmutation is a fundamental shift in who is having those thoughts, who is creating those thoughts and emotions from some more superficial level of who you are to the real who you are, the real conscious unified field that lies at the fundamental basis of our whole experience. So tuning into who you really are, the process of transmutation enlivens that unbounded conscious unified field within yourself, enlivens that unbounded consciousness within yourself. And what that means is then you become more fully conscious. Now, what does more fully conscious mean? It means more fully awake. When you're asleep, you have no consciousness, no intelligence, no energy, no happiness, no fulfillment, no creativity. When you're more fully conscious, you have more intelligence, more creativity, more peace, more harmony, more fulfillment, more ability to create miracles in your lives. So
are you suggesting that we're not fully conscious, like generally speaking?
Yes, I think it's common knowledge that most people are using a tiny portion of the full capacity of the mind, the full capacity of the awareness. Our consciousness is limited to some degree. Our nervous system has some stresses in it. To some extent, we're responding, when something comes along, to some extent, we're responding to some stress caused by some past experience, rather than from the basis of who we truly are, rather than from the basis of that infinitely powerful being who we truly are. We carry around within ourselves a blueprint, and we attract experiences that correspond to that blueprint. We create that kind of a vibratory influence. If you pluck a string on a guitar, it creates a vibratory influence. Remember, the whole universe is these vibratory influences, these vibratory patterns or resonant frequencies. If you pluck a string on...
I'm just agreeing with you, sorry.
Okay, you pluck a string on a guitar, it creates a resonant frequency. If there's some other instrument in the environment, it picks up on that resonant frequency, it resonates. So we're creating what we resonate with in the environment. Now, if we're carrying around a blueprint that says we're only 50% safe and 50% powerful and 50% valuable, then we create that in an environment. Most of the things that seem to be an attack on us, that seem to be a negative murmur moment, they seem to be a threat to our power, our value, or our safety. If we're carrying around an inner blueprint that's vibrating at a resonant frequency of only 70% safe and 60% powerful and 80% valuable, we were going to create in our environment events and people and circumstances that resonate with that. So use these murmur moments to tune into who you truly are. Your true blueprint is this unbounded conscious unified field that creates the whole universe. So tune into that, who you truly are. You'll start to tune more into your 100% valuable, 100% powerful, 100% safe blueprint, and you'll radiate that in your environment, and you'll create that in your life. So that is how you create miracles in your life. Most people, most of the time, are looking out there. Out there is where we want to create miracles. Miracles are created here. Miracles are created within, on the level of your consciousness, by enlivening that unbounded, that infinite value of your consciousness. And that's what the science of creating miracles is about. Go ahead. Awesome.
So now, how do people get connected to that part of themselves? You know, because a lot of our listeners have never done that kind of thing before. How do like, is there something that I know you build workshops around this stuff, and right. is there something, some little thing that you could potentially give our listeners?
Yes, there's plenty that I can give your listeners. First of all, there are, in fact, the conscious unified field experiment, we concluded that 20 years ago. And we published it in the scientific journals and presented it at the American Physical Society and so on. I wrote a very, very technical book about it at that time. My current book is much more accessible and much more about how you can create miracles in your life, not just how the science is involved. And at any rate, during the 20 years, during these last 20 years, I've developed techniques for enlivening the conscious unified field, for unfolding the capacity to create miracles in your life. Neuroscience, quantum physics, and living the life of your dreams is the subtitle to my book, The Science of Creating Miracles. And we've developed techniques for that. And these techniques take place on the level of experience. So listening to Dr. Larry Farwell talk about this stuff is actually going to bring you no closer to having miracles in your life, but having that inner experience will. So there are many techniques which you can learn over a period of time with some guidance. And there are some things that we can say right here and right now for all of your viewers and listeners that will get you started on this progress of creating miracles in your life. And that is what we just started to describe a couple minutes ago, which I call the transmutation trigger technique. When something comes along that triggers you, when something comes along that really creates an aha moment, a murmur moment, okay, now you've got my attention. And let's say it's a negative murmur moment. Someone comes along, says or does something that gets you to you. Okay, that means it's resonating with something in you that's not your full potential, not your full unbounded self. Take advantage of that. Instead of shooting the messenger, instead of thinking, okay, I got to fix this guy so he never does that again, never makes me upset again. Or instead of thinking, oh my God, it means I really am terrible. Instead of externalizing it or internalizing it, use that murmur moment, that trigger moment as an opportunity to get a sense of, well, okay, who am I really? Who is the real Mimi? Who is the real Dr. Larry? And that is achieved not on the level of activity or external attention, it's achieved on the level of inner silence. So take advantage of that murmur moment to tune into, what does it feel like to be the true me? Well, on a quiet level, who am I really? I've already recognized, okay, that person saying or doing, or that circumstance is not really a threat to me. It's not really saying anything about my values, safety, or power. Who am I really? Tune into that on that quiet level, get a feeling of your own consciousness. That enlivens your true blueprint. That enlivens who you truly are. And then that imprints that on the brain. That gets the brain used to that vibratory frequency of the true you, of functioning from that level of silence, that level of inner quietness from where you produce miracles.
So you're not just asking the question, who am I really? You're actually allowing yourself to feel it and encompass it in every way.
Right.
So that you get present to who you are really.
Right. And you open your awareness to your own inner consciousness, the unbounded realm of your life. That happens on the level of silence. Asking this question, telling yourself, okay, I'm powerful, etc. That happens on the surface level of the mind. That's not the experience. What we're talking about is not words, it's an experience that's beyond words. Now you can ask the question, that just gives your awareness a hint of the direction to go, to have that inner experience and get the sense of it. As you've said, Mimi, you get the feeling of who you really are. And what you're going to find as you get more and more successful with transmutation trigger technique, you're going to find when something comes along that really triggers you, you're going to, instead of thinking, oh man, this is horrible, I got to stop this from happening or stop this person from doing this, or you'll start to have a little smile at the twinge of a smile at the edge of your mouth, saying, aha, I have a chance to reprogram my brain now. I have a chance to take advantage of this murmur moment, this aha moment, to tune in to the reality of who I am, to tune in. Oh yeah, I have a sense of what it's like to be infinitely powerful, valuable, and safe, and to have a quiet, subtle desire on that intention, an intention on that level, and see it created in our environment. Because the way we create miracles is to have an inner vision on a very quiet level that sets up that vibratory influence. And the subtler the level, the more it sets up that vibratory influence on the level of the conscious unified field. So if we want to create something in the world, we set up that vibratory influence on the level of our own inner consciousness, which is the conscious unified field that creates the universe. So we're setting up that vibration in the universe, and we discover that that comes at us from every place in our lives, that comes up in our environment, that we create that miracle in our environment by creating it first on the level of our consciousness. And this technique, that I was talking about a minute ago, transmutation trigger, attunes your awareness, attunes your nervous system to that subtle level of functioning where miracles are created.
That's so great, because I really get from this technique that when you practice catching your murmur moments and getting present to who you really are, or another way to say that is your authentic self, that people then are filled with peace from within. And I started this thing by saying, you know, when people have peace from within, the world will have peace without. So it's really extraordinary way to accomplish peace. It makes it definitely doable.
Yes, I think the science of creating miracles is the foundation for establishing peace, because you're establishing by enlivening your consciousness to the science of creating miracles and creating miracles in your life. You're establishing peace and harmony in your life. You're also establishing success and fulfillment in your life, which is a big part of world peace. We have to have people successful in the world, as well as feeling and experiencing peace and harmony. And let's look at this. Some people, or people are always saying, all right, let's look at this in a practical way. All right, let's look at this in a practical way. Peace is something that's your responsibility and mine, Mimi, not somebody else's. We can't expect somebody to make an arrangement that's going to result in world peace.
Right.
In the last 2,000 years, there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of political arrangements. We can't count on the politicians to somehow make the world peaceful. There have been thousands of treaties and arrangements and agreements and all of that. That hasn't worked. One definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Well, for 2,000 years, trying to make different arrangements and agreements and treaties and so on hasn't resulted in peace. If you look at read histories that were written after World War I and before World War II. They didn't call it World War I. They called it the Great War or the World War, the war that was going to end wars, because now we've solved these problems. We've made all these treaties, so it won't happen again until 20 years goes by, and it does happen again. So I'm not meaning to disparage diplomacy, because diplomacy and the politics are an important aspect of it. But those must be founded. The diplomacy must be founded on creativity, on intelligence, and on human beings living lives of peace and harmony in their world and creating success and fulfillment in their lives. Then diplomacy on that basis can be successful. And arrangements among nations that are full of people living lives of peace and harmony and success and fulfillment are going to be successful in creating a peaceful world, of peace among nations, as well as peace among human beings.
Whoa, awesome, awesome. And I feel like I could talk to you for hours. But so any last words that you'd like to share with us before we close up for the evening?
Sure. My book, The Science of Creating Miracles, Neuroscience, Quantum Physics, and Living the Life of Your Dreams. I encourage people to take a look at that. You can also participate in workshops and seminars about the science of creating miracles. And we go into practical techniques for creating miracles in your life. And you can find out about that from our website, which is scienceofcreatingmiracles.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I think I'd like to close out this interview with a share or a testimonial. And I didn't do this conversation with you in order to sell anything for you or with you or anything like that. It really is for me, for people to have inner peace so the world has outer peace. But I just wanted to share with people some of what I've got out of participating in your workshops. So, and this is something that I haven't shared with you yet, Dr. Larry, but I've been in Dr. Larry's workshops since November. I was in workshop 1 and I'm currently in workshop 2. Love every morsel of it that I can get. And I'm not a scientific person. And but when you start practicing the techniques, they really make a difference. So I've been practicing a specific technique for financial abundance. And sometimes I ask for something specific, and sometimes I just ask for financial abundance, you know, like in 2 weeks from now or whatever that is. But I've been reliably asking for the universe for financial abundance for a couple of weeks. And I, at the beginning of this week, excuse me, beginning of this week, I connected with the CRA site. I live in Canada, so it's the Canada Revenue Agency website. We're very blessed here that our government gives a subsidy, subsidy for the pandemic and COVID, and for entrepreneurs that are not earning enough money in this time period. So I go to claim the benefit, and it tells me that I have to give them a call. And I'm thinking, what the heck? Why do I have to give them a call? Like, you know, I've received the benefit before, so what could be wrong now? Or, you know, so I call them and they remove whatever was there to allow me to make the application for this. But they told me 2 really great things. First of all, that I said to the gentleman on the other side of the phone, I said, I know we're only allowed to collect this 12 times or for 6 months. And I actually have one more payment to go, so I shouldn't be blocked yet. He said, well, let me look into it, because 3 days ago they've just extended it from 12 to 17. So that's another 3 months of benefits. As if that weren't enough, he turned around and told me that there was I didn't collect for all the payment periods, so I could actually apply for 2 payments at once. So I'm expecting 2 payments from the government this week instead of 1. And I don't think that that really would have come into my consciousness had I not been focused on financial abundance. I have a whole slew of other ones if anybody wanted to reach out to me, but I think that the one about finances was a real one that people can identify with. And I think it's worth trying the science of creating miracles to change or transmute situations in your life. It can be relationships, it can be spirituality, it can be any area of your life. This is not like a financial thing. This is like anything, any murmur moment that you want to transmute, you can transmute with these techniques. And I'm just so thankful that I get the opportunity to practice these techniques inside of a community also where I can ask questions and have access to you. Really extraordinary. So thank you so much for making yourself available, you know, and sharing it, because you could have kept this knowledge to a small group of people, your peers, whatever, but that you bring this out to the world really is a testament to the greatness of the person that you are. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mimi.
for being here. Thank you for everything you provide. And I look forward to causing peace with you on the planet. Bye for now.